I want to talk today a little bit about the Omer, but start from the beginning. Not counting the Omer, but the minhagim that people have of showing some kind of avelut, of mourning during the Omer. So originally, the two things that were mentioned is laset nashim or listaper. Those are the only two things that were mentioned when they were mentioned. Getting married and taking a haircut. Now, taking a haircut wasn't a big deal because if it for some waited 1 month, people usually waited back then 1 month, 30 days to take a haircut. So after 30 days, you could take a haircut. It didn't refer to shaving at all because people didn't shave. According to halacha, you don't shave with a razor. So there were no easy methods to shave daily. So people didn't shave. So they only trimmed their beard. So trimming the beard once a month wasn't also a problem. In many communities, they used to also trim their beard before Shabbat. So, and today, there's no question that people who shave regularly should keep on doing it during Chol HaMoed, during the Sefirah. There's no question. Even about weddings, when the Shulchan Aruch wrote it, before the Shulchan Aruch, it was not to be found in the Sephardic or the major Ashkenazi books of halakha. Nobody said that this is a rule. Shulchan Aruch is the first one who writes it, and we'll talk later about why he wrote that. But when he wrote it, many of the Sephardic Hachamim said that there's no basis for this practice, and for whatever reason you could override it. So what is whatever reason? They say, someone who didn't have children yet could get married during the Omer. So meaning the provision only for one who wants to remarry, second marriage. But even that, which back then it was, if he has no one to serve him, because they looked at the woman as a servant, he could get married during the Moed, even if he has children. But the same thing, if someone feels lonely and he needs to get married, and he found a shidduch and he wants to get married during the Omer, many Hachamim at the time of Shulchan Aruch said that it's okay. Now, but the question, like I said, what is the background of this whole story? Why do we have avelut? So it's a famous statement in the Gemara. In Masechet Yevamot, the Gemara says, 24,000 תלמידים היו לו לרבי עקיבא, וכולם מתו בין פסח לעצרת. Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 students, and they all died between Pesach and Shavuot. No, the Gemara doesn't say it. The Gemara says between Pesach and Shavuot. Between Pesach and Shavuot, which means it's during a period of 7 weeks. So of course it's a great tragedy. Later on, for some reason, which we'll discuss again later, it was for the Sfaradim, we cut it in half. People practice till Lag BaOmer. The Ashkenazim cut it into 2 halves. Up to Lag BaOmer, and from Lag BaOmer to Shavuot, they keep all the minhagim, but on the Lag BaOmer, on the day itself, they take a break. Right? So the question is, if you rely on the story in the Talmud that they died from Pesach to Shavuot, why the discount? And then they say, we found a version in one of the old books that came from Spain that it says not that they died from Pesach to Shavuot, but rather from Pesach till half Shavuot, Pros Atzeret, and that means that you have to take, they say half means half a month, so you have to take 15 days off Shavuot, you go back, it's 33. Still it's a problem, because when you go back 15 days from Shavuot, you don't get to 33 of the Omer, you get to 34. So they should have kept the Avelut up until 34, but that's, again, we have to get into this also. But the thing is, that's interesting, if Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 Talmidim, how come we know nothing of them? We don't know their names, we don't know
any details about them.
We know the top 5.
No, the top 5 are not related to the bottom 24,000. Why? Because the Gemara says this. Here. let me read again. אמרו 12,000 זוגים תלמידים היו לרבי עקיבא מגבת עד אנטיפרס. וכולם, it's not Antipras, it's Antipatris. Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 תלמידים, and they were from Gevat in the north to Antipatris, which is near Lod of today. וכולן מתו פרק אחד, מפני שלא נהגו כבוד זה לזה. And they all died in one period, because they disrespected each other. So it's a strange reason. Also in terms of, it's like a divine punishment, right? A miracle that one would have said, listen, if this happens in the time, post-biblical times, we don't find miracles at such scales, right? We know there's no in the Torah all the time. There we find plagues. After the Egel, there's a plague. The story of Pinchas and Zimri ben Salu and Cosby, when he slept with the Midianite, we brought the Midianite woman to Oil Mu'ayyad, there was a plague. But after the time of the Tanakh, we never find it. So we should have heard more about it. Now, then the Gemara says, "V'haya ha'olam shamim." There was no Torah. The word was desolate. עד שבא רבי עקיבא אצל רבותינו שבדרום ושנאה להם. And then Rabbi Akiva came to the scholars in the south of Israel, and he told them, and who are they? Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, והם יעמידו Torah. So the 5 students that we know by name of Rabbi Akiva, they're all after the death of the 24,000 people. Now this causes a problem, because if you another famous story in the Gemara about the shidduch of Rabbi Akiva,
Rabbi Eliezer also,
Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, not Eliezer ben Azariah. The story in the Gemara about Rabbi Akiva, who he was. So the Gemara says Rabbi Akiva Ra'yad ben Kalba Savua, he was a shepherd for Kalba Savua. Hazia berate dava tzani'u me'aleh. His daughter saw that he was a special person. He saw special things in him. She said, "Im kadashna lach azat leveirav." He wasn't ignorant. He wasn't ignoramus. Didn't know much, but he had good character traits according to her. So she said, "I'm going to marry you, but go to the yeshiva to learn." He said, "Okay." She married him secretly. She sent him to the yeshiva. And the father kicked her out of the house. He was so upset that his daughter, he was a very, very important person. His daughter married a lowly shepherd and not a scholar. He said, "Leave my house and you can't derive benefit from me at all, not a penny even." He went to the yeshiva for 12 years. When he came back, he comes with 12,000 students. So he heard an old man, or some versions say an old woman, talking to his wife, saying, "Until when are you going to stay like that, a living widow?" Meaning your husband is still alive, but you live like a widow for 12 years. If he listens to me, should spend another 12 years in the yeshiva. He says, "I'm doing it with permission." He turned around with his 12,000 talmidim and left. And then when he came after 12 years, after 24 years in total, he had 24,000 students. Now, this story sounds a little fantastic, no? But yes, little.
They're all fantastic.
Okay, why is it fantastic? We're talking about small villages in Israel, right?
Yeah.
A man comes, Rabbi Akiva comes, marching with 12,000 people to his wife's house. She doesn't know he's coming. He comes to the house, behind the wall, he hears her talking to another man or a woman who says, why are you waiting? And he says, you know what, I could turn around. She doesn't know about it. How is it possible? You march through town with 12,000 people, even if they tiptoe, right? You're going to hear them, right? So 12,000 sounds a little exaggerated. 24,000 sounds even more exaggerated. And here, the Hida, Rabbi Haim David Azulai, in a book called Haim Ovadia, he says the following. He asks about this as well, about a midrash that says that Mordechai had 22,000 students. He says, איך היה מלמד מרדכי לבדו 22,000 תלמידים? How can he have 22,000 students? First, according to Halacha, you cannot have more than 25 students because you cannot attend to everyone. And he says, and also, in reality, it's unrealistic that 22,000 people would be taught by one person, even if it's Moshe Rabbeinu. Even if he's up day and night and never sleeps, he cannot address the needs of 22,000 students.
The way that I understood it is that he wasn't personally the teacher, but he trained other teachers.
Okay, so that's the answer of
the Rosh Yeshiva, it's like...
That's the answer of the Hida, right? That's the answer of the Hida. The Hida says, הם היו ראשי ישיבות. They became the ראשי ישיבות, and they had ראשי דוכנה לכל 40 תלמידים, וכן על גבי 10,000 ו10 מאות, וראש דוכנה ב50. They delegated. But now, this answer makes it even more complicated, because what we're saying is, that Rabbi Akiva had a system of 24,000 talmidim, right? And for 24,000 talmidim, each 50 were broken to had their own teacher, which makes it for 24,000. How many will be? Another 1,020 masters, and those 1,020 have to have this is a whole hierarchy. He comes with a whole structure, but that's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says he came with 24,000 talmidim, direct talmidim. So this is the problem that we have. Now, what we know from other sources, and so we have two problems. One, the exaggerated numbers that don't fit, are not realistic in terms of students learning Torah from one person, walking with him, coming to the house, and all that. And having the physical right. And Eretz Israel at the time didn't have, the excavations. You go and you see the villages were 10,000 people. Right. Rome was the biggest city in the world at the time. Rome was indeed a big city and had about 1 million people, the metropolis. But other cities were very, very small. So now we know something else about Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is famous as a Talmid Chacham, a spiritual leader, but he was also a military or a political leader. What was his political involvement? He was a great supporter of Shimon Bar Kokhba, which the Hachamim called Bar Koziba. Actually, his real name was Shimon Bar Koziba, which means also could be interpreted as false, Kazav. But Rabbi Akiva called him Bar Kokhba, the sound of the star, because he believed that he is the Mashiach. Yes. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Akiva, Kadava Hame Bar Kozba, Amar Denu Malka Meshiha. Rabbi Akiva saw Bar Kokhba, he says, this is the Mashiach. Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Torta, Akiva Ya'alu Asavim bil Hayecha, Ve'adayin ben David lo yavo. He says, this is not the Mashiach. He says, you are going to be pushing daisies. He says literally, the grass will grow through your cheeks. Meaning that he tells Rabbi Akiva that he will be buried and grass will grow through his body, and still Mashiach is not coming. So rabbis were not happy with that. But meanwhile, Rabbi Akiva didn't let go, and he was traveling around the world to raise money and to recruit followers to join the army. And that's the Gemara says in another place, in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, Rabbi Akiva says, when I went to Arabia, I saw this. When I went to Gaul, to France, I found this.
When I went to Africa, he traveled everywhere, wherever there were Roman posts. Rabbi Akiva went. What was he doing there? He was recruiting people for the war. Not only Jews, against the Romans. And the Bar Kokhba revolt was the last revolt from the year 67, when the war against the Romans started, what we call the Great Revolt. There was one more revolt called Mered Atfutzot, the revolt of the diaspora, Kirene and other islands, in 112, and then in 132 to 135, the Bar Kokhba revolt, which brought almost the end of Jews in Eretz Israel. And 132 to 135.
So the destruction was in 68.
Yes, it was 60 years later. 60 years later. And after that, there was nothing left in Eretz Israel. And Rabbi Akiva was the one who pushed very, very strongly for that. And a lot of the people that he recruited to join the army were not Jews. He converted them. And that's why he was traveling. He was getting people from, the Jews who lived outside Israel, and he also convinced, non-Jews to join the war.
Where do we know all these things?
If you put together all the
Gemara.
yeah, it's all over the Gemara and other places, and okay, we'll talk about it in the next time that we discuss it.
But not in one